สวัสดีครับ Good morning sorry good afternoon from Thailand everyone. My name is Varin Pulpol. Today I am talking about understanding information operation and economic impacts in the digital era. In today's conference we will talk about the objective, materials and methods, results and discussions, and lastly the conclusion of my research. Introduction. In 2016, during the US presidential election between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, Cambridge Analytica collect 87 million data from Facebook users and use those data to exploit Donald Trump campaign for the Republican Party. Many believe that the information was used to conduct information operations in support of Donald Trump. Therefore, it can be said that information is important and it can be used to influence society in many respects. The ability or skill to use different types of media allows them to manipulate information operations. Nowadays, even though the advantage of information technology is bountiful, but the potentiality of information operations is still increasing because information operations is inevitably free to everyone. Hence, the purpose of this research is to perform a case study of information operations. For the objective, 1. To study and analyze people understanding and knowledge of information operations. 2. To study the variables affecting economic predictions in the digital era. Materials and methods. In this research, 602 people were selected as samples because they access social media such as Facebook and Twitter regularly. The majority are Thai citizens aged 18 or above. The data were collected via an online survey created by Google Form and were then analyzed using other logistic regression since the dependent variable is ordinal. The independent variable are demographic factors including gender, education level, occupation, average monthly income, average monthly saving and social media platforms. The dependent variable is people's attitude towards economic impacts. Measured with a covariate variable, the score of the knowledge and understanding of information operations. Results and discussion. Predictor coefficient of the education level by the order logistic regression model. Body. When comparing a positive attitude with a negative attitude, you will see from the chart, right, that the result find that education level lower than a bachelor degree has a negative attitude score of 1.511. If the education level is only a bachelor degree, it has an economic impact of 1.536 towards the economy. This shows groups with lower education levels have a lower negative attitude compared to higher education people. Main point 2, at the right, you will see uncertain versus negative. When comparing an uncertain attitude with a negative attitude, people with lower education than a bachelor degree show an uncertain attitude towards economic impacts of 0.391. Meanwhile, people who have obtained a bachelor degree show an uncertain attitude towards economic impacts of 0.564. This means that people with lower education have a lower likelihood of having an uncertain attitude than more educated groups. For the main point 3, the order logistic regression analysis shows that the education influenced the economy in the digital era. The two following points explains: 1. If the knowledge score increased by 1 point, the negative attitude will be increased by 0.991. If people have reached an education level lower than a bachelor degree, it tends to increase the chance of having a negative attitude towards economic impacts by 0.413. Meanwhile, when the population has education higher than a bachelor degree, there is no significance of the attitude towards economic impacts. If the knowledge score increased by 1 point, the estimation of an uncertain impact will increase by 0.133. If people have attained lower education level than a bachelor degree,
you have only 2 minutes. Excuse me, Varin. Yeah, you have only 2 minutes. Okay. More 2 minutes. Thank you.
Education level than a bachelor degree, the chance of having a negative attitude towards economic impact will increase by 0.939. While when the population has an education level higher than a bachelor degree, there is no significance of the attitude towards economic impacts. For the discussion, this research finds that education level is the only variable affecting the attitude of Thai citizens towards economic impacts. During COVID-19 crisis, the government launched the half price co-payment campaign to measure the domestic economy. People with higher education were skeptical. They did extensive research and analysis before adopting it. Therefore, findings indicate that participants from higher education groups have a greater likelihood of holding a negative attitude towards economic impacts than people with lower education levels. By recognizing the attitude of people with higher education from this study can help to create a strategy for acceptance of government campaign and provide sufficient information to enhance the adoption of economic campaigns among people with higher education. Hence, there will be a larger cash flow in the local economic system, leading to an increase of private consumption and the recovery of the domestic economy. For the conclusion, from this analysis, the recommendation made are: 1. Understanding of information operation can help society to scrutinize news and identify which news should be trusted or not trusted. Therefore, it is important to spread accurate information operations only. 2. Simultaneously, the predictions of economic impacts in the digital era and competence authorities should disseminate information operations widely at all levels of education to create a better society to contribute to economic growth. That is all for my presentation today. Thank you, everyone.
ดร.สวรักษ์ครับเปิดไมค์ด้วยครับอาจารย์ครับอาจารย์เปิดไมค์ด้วยครับอาจารย์สวรักษ์ครับ please open your turn on your mic yeah
Sorry, I forgot that. Thank you, Khun Varin, for your presentation. And I think your topic is interesting, and I think you are going to do more research. So my suggestion would be something that you can make a clearer research method. Okay. One thing, I think you're not clear about how you have a sampling selection and period of study, because you mentioned about you send by Google form, and then you mentioned about during the COVID-19. So you have to identify that how the Google form was sent and in what period, because it may affect some target group, and that can bring your result on that only education variable is matter. It may depend on the target group. And also, I think I'd like you to explain more about the logic of selecting variable in your estimation, because you are doing some quantitative analysis, but you have to start with the logic, like how it relates to your title and objective. A little bit not clear about your title that you said, understanding of IO to economic impact. But it seems to be you not define IO in the research, like what the difference between the social media general information and IO. IO is information operation. It must be operated by someone, right? Or what kind of IO you mean in your paper, and how it select into a variable, because I don't see that, and you may IO in the topic and then at the beginning, but later it seems to be a general information. So I'm not really clear about that. So if you define, right, what kind of IO you mentioned, or maybe you focus on just a social media general information, so you have to say that, and then it affects your variable, okay? And also, sometimes you talk about attitude of economic impact, and then about the understanding or knowledge is not the same thing. So we have to be clear that it's different variable. And I'm not really sure about the variable you say you reflect the knowledge and understanding, because it's not shown in the presentation. So this kind of thing, that if you can make it clearer, it's gonna be more interesting, and then make it more linked with the policy. But what I'm suggesting that you have to start with the logic, how you define each variable, and then select it into the estimation, and then what the result provide for the policy implication. That is my general comments. Now I'd like to invite someone from the floor that you may like to have a further comments, right? Not only my own. So anyone from the floor like to provide some suggestion and comment to Khun Varin?
Any questions for our friends? Any questions, sir? No. Okay. Thank you, Khun Varin. Thank you so much.